I found an interesting article on the internet today, written in 2004. It's called Chemtrails and Terror in the Age of Nuclear War by Amy Worthington. This was published in the Idaho Observer in 2004. North America is now suffering its 7th year of conspicuous and dangerous aerosol and electromagnetic operations conducted by the U.S. government under the guise of national security. I'm just going to skip around in this article. If you want to read it, you can look it up on the internet. We continually witness bizarre meteorological occurrences as powerful electromagnetic devices manipulate both the jet stream and individual storm fronts to create artificial weather and climate conditions. Black operations projects embedded within these aerosol missions are documented to sicken and disorient select populations with biological test agents and psychotronic mind and mood control technologies. Now, when I read this here, powerful electromagnetic devices manipulate both the jet stream and individual storm fronts, I wrote here, turbines, ? Part of what is happening in the atmosphere above us involves the Pentagon secret space weapons program designed for strategic, operational, and tactical levels of war. Now, I do not believe in outer space, and I do not believe that jets are delivering these aerosols, as you know. I believe this is a supernatural undertaking that all the governments of the world are complicit with, not only the U.S. government. Continuing on page 1, the Air Force Space Commandment declares that in order to monitor and shape world events, it must fight intense, decisive wars with great precision from space. Well, they're fighting off God. They're fighting off the wrath of God and the angels of God and the armies of God. Space capabilities are integrated with and every link in the kill chain. This was a quote from Air Force Secretary James G. Roche, R-O-C-H-E, Roche. A glimpse into new death technologies under construction is in legislation introduced by Ohio Congressman Dennis Kucinich. In their quest to remain top dog in the kill chain, the purveyors of perpetual war have deliberately dimmed Earth, life-giving sunlight, and reduced atmospheric visibility with lung-clogging particulates and polymers. Years of mass appeals to legislators, media, and military officials for information and for cessation of catastrophic atmospheric degradation have fallen on deaf, bureaucratic ears. Public awareness of what befalls us remains as murky as our skies because those in the know are muzzled by national secrecy laws, and Americans have no authority to challenge matters of national security. Left to gather clues, we know this much so far. I just wanted to comment on this. They are muzzled. Those in the know are muzzled. I'll tell you what, those in the know are not only muzzled, they are probably also largely complicit. So she says, left to gather clues, we know this much so far. Dumping tons of particulate matter from aircraft has geoengineered our planetary, I would just say earthly atmosphere into a highly charged, electrically conductive plasma useful for military projects. The air we breathe is laden with asbestos-sized synthetic fibers and toxic metals, including barium, aluminum, and radioactive thorium, and I would add sulfur and number 1, mercury. These materials act as electrolytes to enhance conductivity of military radar and radio waves. What are these fools looking for with all their radar? poisonous on par with arsenic and a proven suppressant of the human immune system. Atmospheric barium weakens human muscles. I wouldn't even say human because we know what that means. It means pavian or ape, including those of the heart. Inhaled aluminum goes directly to the brain, and medical specialists confirm that it causes oxidative stress within brain tissue, leading to formation of Alzheimer's, leukemia, and other cancers. High-frequency microwaves used to manipulate the charged atmosphere for weather modification, information gathering, and for tectonic, earthquake-producing weaponry. Electromagnetic frequencies, ELF, pulsing at 4 Hertz multiples, frequencies known profoundly to affect human biological and mental functioning. There is a well-documented biological component to continuously ongoing atmospheric studies in which nations and regions are furtively inoculated via specially designed delivery systems with combinations of viruses, bacteria, fungi, mycoplasma, desiccated blood cells, and exotic biological markers so that test masters can assess human, animal, and plant response. These the multi-organizational megalith perpetrating these biochem projects against humanity includes the U.S. Department of Defense, DARPA, plus the Department of Energy, DOE, with its huge networks of national labs, Livermore, for example, Brookhaven in New York, not far from where the Twin Towers fell, hint, hint, and universities. Private defense contractors and pharmaceutical companies are heavily involved. Gross chemical and electromagnetic pollution is only part of the horrific realities we endure. And then we have to listen to socio and psychopaths tell us that we don't know what we're talking about. The sociopaths who brazenly pervert skies, climate, and weather for power and profit are the same madmen who have waged 4 limited nuclear wars since 1991. Radioactive weaponry, declared both illegal and immoral by the entire civilized world, has been used by the Pentagon in Desert Storm, the Balkans campaign, and the ongoing occupation wars against Afghanistan and Iraq. Refuse from radioactive weaponry does not disperse, but remains in the atmosphere, organotoxic, mutagenic, and carcinogenic to all living flesh for 4 billion years. Okay, that's what she wrote. I don't know if that's true. I don't even know how you can calculate something like that, but that's what it says here. The 250,000 U.S. and British fighting forces who have helped the Pentagon deliver this Holocaust also face inevitable radiological death by slow burn. Slow grill, slow kill. Lungs, kidneys, blood, lymph, and bone are affected. Uranium contamination leads to incapacitating multi-organ system disorders identical to illnesses suffered by thousands of Gulf War I vets, bodily fluids poisoned with uranium isotopes, sicken spouses, and visit upon offspring a genetic Armageddon. Pentagon documents confirm that America's war establishment knowingly exposes its own troops to dangerous levels of radiation. Well, of course it does. Because our military industrial overlords brazenly poison the very grunts who make their war games possible, we must logically conclude there is virtually nothing they would not secretly and sadistically do to the rest of us. Military officials lie as perniciously about chemtrail operations as they do about effects of depleted uranium weaponry. If people were to consider the published science regarding chemtrails and depleted uranium, they would understand that we are all in mortal jeopardy. She wrote this almost 20 years ago, 2004. Both the Pentagon's aerosol operations and its limited nuclear wars are deeply interconnected. The Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in California is involved. It talks about Edward Teller, who was a Jew, father of the hydrogen bomb, and proponent of nuking, inhabited coastlines to rearrange them for economic projects. Before he died in 2003, Teller was director emeritus of Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, where plans for nuclear, biological, and directed energy weapons are crafted. I'm telling you that nuclear is chemtrail. Sounds harmless. In 1997, Teller publicly outlined his proposal to use aircraft to scatter in the stratosphere millions of tons of electrically conductive metal materials, ostensibly to reduce global warming. How can you reduce global warming when you put electromagnetic conducting metals in the air and inject electricity into it? Electricity is always going to produce heat. Always. Shortly after Teller's presentation, the public began seeing frenetic chemtrailing. I think I noticed it around 1996 or so. Teller estimated that commercial aircraft could be used to spew these particles at a cost of 33 cents a pound. The article goes on for another several pages. They're saying that they wanted to create a sunscreen. That's what this molten metallic magnetic mirror is, what they spray in front of the sun every day and project lasers onto it. You think that's cooling the atmosphere? Are you kidding me? Micropollution particles bypass lung filters and enter the bloodstream. They cause radical changes in the endocrine and nervous systems. They can trigger high blood pressure and cause heart attack within 2 hours of inhalation. They cause the blood to become sticky, meaning what? Coagulating, making it tougher for the heart to pump and increasing the risk of blood clots and vessel damage. There has been a significant increase in the number of stroke victims. They spray polymers to absorb electromagnetic radiation. Serious skin lesions and disease when they are absorbed into the skin. They also spray, these microscopic polymers are comprised of genetically engineered fungal forms mutated with virus and contain bizarre chemical properties. The military's aerosol operations have been climate altering to the extreme. They scatter tons of heat-trapping metallic particulates, and heat-liberating barium salts have undoubtedly led to accelerated global warming. We must suspect that the warming mitigation program is a hoax and that chemtrailing is really intended, among other things, to create a series of hobgoblins. The establishment's modus operandi for maintaining a fierce and lucrative hold upon the collective American mind has been defined precisely by satirist H. L. Mencken, Mencken, who lived from 1880 to 1956, and he wrote, "The whole claim of practical politics is to keep the populace alarmed and thus clamorous to be led to safety by menacing it with an endless series of hobgoblins, all of them imaginary." You see, all of them are imaginary, and that's what they talk about all day long. But they do not talk about these so-called chemtrails, this nuclear waste pollution in the sky, in the water, in your blood, in your bones, and in your brains. The Pentagon's lucrative Vietnam War was being revved into high gear. Establishment brain trusters confirmed that perpetual war is absolutely vital for controlling and manipulating the masses. The document even suggested a number of options for creating fictitious enemies, noting that perpetual war induces populations to give blind allegiance to political authority. They have employed fear and the concept of enemy and war to keep us in bondage. Chemtrailing is a manifestation of the Fourth Reich, an era of corporate fascism ushered in by the powerful military juggernaut, which manufactures enemies and unleashes fake terror attacks to scare us into voiceless submission. Here she talks about the drastic manipulation of weather, what they're spraying in the sky, and how they are experimenting on us. It's not experimenting. It is killing us. Storm creation and modification, fog and cloud creation, precipitation enhancement, precipitation denial, drought inducement, and artificial creation of space weather. This was all in a document written 40 years ago. Weather weapons are now routinely used in war zones. Black clouds suddenly materialize out of blue skies. We have that often in summer. We'll have black, and then we'll have white. This is electromagnetic conducting aerosols, which create heat. They do not cool the so-called planet. Here she talks about HAARP. HAARP antennas bombard and heat the atmosphere, causing electromagnetic frequencies to bounce back to Earth, penetrating every living and dead. Everything living and dead. And if it's not HAARP, it's something that's newer. Gwen, Nexrad, etc. It's really worthwhile reading this. It says here, the bizarre atmospheric upheavals we can expect as the military continues to brutalize our planet and near space with its grotesque toys. She talks about electromagnetic beams, which I believe they project onto the sun to make it look like a glow ball. Of course, she doesn't mention Satan here, but I will. It's all his doing. Despite visual evidence that every aspect of our physical environment is being manipulated and damaged for war games, some Americans cannot accept that dangerous covert operations are being conducted by a government that they still believe to be a virtuous defender of freedom. Their stumbling block is a numbing belief that their own officials would ever perpetrate dangerous experimentation on humanity since, quote, they have families too. History and the release of declassified government documents disprove such naivete. Huge deliberate releases of radioactive iodine, fetal deaths, spontaneous abortions, stillbirths, and birth defects. Military aircraft sprayed American cities with bacteria, fungus, carcinogenic chemicals. Chemical warfare agents such as sarin, nerve gas. The cocktails used in those genocidal tests are now linked to cancer, heart, and lung problems suffered by surviving guinea pigs. We are told that defense officials perpetrated these atrocities so that scientists could learn how to protect Americans from attack. So I'm going to have to finish this because my time is almost up, but please read the article. I will put a link in the box. Chemtrails and Terror in the Age of Nuclear War by Amy Worthington, 2004. Thank you.